Hey guys, Mustached Tom here to review the movie Twisters. Now, I think I've seen the trailer for this movie about once or twice before going out to see it. And I don't know if this is meant to be a sequel to Singular Twister. I don't know. Anyway, point being is now we follow a young storm chaser by the name of Kate, who is a part of this initial team to essentially try to quell down tornadoes. Unfortunately, with their starting equipment being so old, they just aren't equipped to deal with it, and instead must hide. However, in the process of this storm, and they attempt to hide, only Kate remains, and one other individual. Later on, we see return by the name of... I had it in my notes, and I don't remember where I put it, so... Sorry, I think his name is Javi. There we go. Anyway. Point being is that Kate still wants to be involved, but not as directly, so she goes to work with a company in, sort of on the inside, and one of her associates, one of the ones that survived, being this Javi guy, wants to bring her back on board to go back out there and chase some storms. He talks about her new team and the new tech that she will be provided. And so she decides to sort of follow along, but still keep at a little bit of a distance. We then meet our rival hurricane van team, led by a bunch of more tornado watchers, or chasers in this case. One led by, I also put him in the notes somewhere, Tyler, who does this stuff primarily via live and on YouTube to, make sure the news gets out there in one way or another. So they're both now competing, and to a degree, to chase the storms. And during the squad, our main squad, they failed to place these these 3-panel things that they explain in this movie that can remove the twister by doing some science mumbo jumbo. I wasn't really paying attention to the jargon of tornado stuff, but nonetheless, it's essentially meant to be a failsafe to stop tornadoes. They don't get it off, so they sort of have to stick it out and watch as the rival team shoot up a bunch of fireworks, which I guess also stops this particular tornado. I don't know how that works. I guess their equipment in the fireworks is also meant of the same stuff, but just with fireworks. So she's clearly a little bit disappointed, and she has a little chat with him after the fact, and they sort of mock her for being a city girl, and she talks about how she wasn't one at first, and kind of snaps back at her for working with big tech. She doesn't initially take that to too much heart, but eventually that sort of leads on. So, the other squad guy, they tries to patch things up, and the rivals head up too. So, they all eventually come across another set of twisters. And this is the part of the movie, since one of the squads has a newcomer or journalist, I guess. Each of them is explaining how much we know about twisters, yet how little we simultaneously know about twisters. This is probably where most of the actual, intel about what we currently know about tornadoes or twisters, whatever you want to call them, derives from, and it just is just pure explanation in the movie. And to be fair, not every movie needs to do this, but I feel like in this case scenario, at least you have one para squad that's, explaining it to a newcomer, that being the journalist. And I don't know how much the other guy knew, Have, so it works to a degree, I think. And so I'm not too disappointed in this exposition in this regard. They handle it quite well, I feel, in terms of how, these things function, or at least to the degree acknowledge that they are aware of how tornadoes function. Again, they claim to not fully understand everything. Nonetheless, they both have a chance to chase a tornado each. At one point, the main squad chooses the tornado to chase, while the other one sort of just simmers down on its own rather quickly. But we do see that the smaller squad, our hero squad, chooses to, after the fact, after the tornado or twister has set course, to help out with the town. We see them go up to the people, make sure that they're okay, and they also work for big tech. This is where the rival guy insists that, why are you really doing this? Sort of implanting this idea that, that something a little bit more shady is happening. At least with the bigger tech people. And as it would, turn out, he's in it for the profit, profiting off of the people's misery, as it were. So, criticizing the bad side of capitalism, what it gets people to do when there is no check versus, just making sure people are okay. Because, I mean, the kind of harsh, or, flip side, I guess, is, I mean, if you have less people, you do also technically have less business if you want to be a capitalist, so it's really a lose-lose if you really actually think about it. At least for what the side she was working with initially. So, she decides she's going to quit. And after the fact, these two sort of seem to pair up pretty well, and, it sort of kind of turns into a romance, I guess? I mean, it's implied at the end that he's going to stick around with her in that way. They never kiss at the end, but, lead up at least. That's as far as it goes. Anyway, a tornado warning heads off when it's just the two of them in this little rodeo show, and they go to this pool area with a few other people. Some people get sucked up. We have a death count in this movie, which I think the original Twister movie did, I think. I don't remember. It's been a long time. And we have Have still not quite, wanting to leave. He's still very much in the business mindset at this point in time, so she decides to leave with him, the other guy. And we see a flashback about how him and her, and how they specifically used to first initially start to chase tornadoes. And then we have this scene with her mom and Tyler being together with her, and how much she, when she was young, used to be into this sort of thing. And so the two of them team up to try to figure out ways to stop twisters in this regard. So they begin practicing with the smaller ones, seeing if they can, do that first, just to make sure they can do it. And they do eventually stop one, and this is where Have comes to apologize. But he's still in that framework, and eventually, as it becomes more and more harder for him to see what she's choosing and why that's the better option, and the more, moral action to take in this regard, that he too, later on, right after this, will also just quit. So one of the later tornadoes is one that catches on fire. I think that's the one they primarily promote in the trailers. And so they're forced to flee, essentially, not being able to stop that one. And this is where Have chooses to quit after the fact, after seeing how the guy he's with is still determined to, chase that tornado rather than go back and help the people that it just passed by. So he makes his choice fairly close to the end of the movie here. Then we see our last tornado, in which it's like on this field and it's heading toward this building, and so with the setup of the tornado moving in closer and closer, she decides to head up solo towards the tornado with all that equipment and begin to use the devices and such that had worked on the smaller tornadoes, and with a little bit of a delay on this one, it's significantly bigger. It does eventually come to an end after only, it does unfortunately take, I think it was 2 people. I think it might have taken 4. I'm not entirely sure, I don't remember. At most 4. But still. And with that, as I mentioned before, when they're at the little station, the two remain together, that being Tyler and her. And he's, he had quit, and so I guess how they sort of sticking around as the friendly guy who will probably just be with them as a friend. And that's where the movie Twisters ends, and that was quite enjoyable. They had some character work about why she was fascinated with what she's doing. We saw that she felt guilt and responsibility, and even this, the low point of the film of her wanting to quit, seeing how little she felt she could do in response to said twisters, and her being picked back up via other people in her life, her mom, Tyler, showing her that, not doing anything is still leading to other people, getting hurt. So she's inclined to, as it were, get back in there and essentially, settle her fears or regrets or whatever, various emotions, or guiding her to push those aside and get the work done to make sure a bunch of people remain safe. So I think that's a pretty standard movie, and I will say, not bad. There are plenty of disaster films in this regard, and, I do think that this movie does have a little bit of that spectacle to it of, like, some people just get sucked up and then, whew, they're gone, but I don't think it ever stops losing its thread on the characters we are following, and I think that's what's really crucial in any horror film, or in this case, I guess, disaster film, if you want to create a if that's the subgenre I would want to call this under under that, or aligned with that, whatever, which one. And I think that there's enough to the characters where it's like, okay, I can follow her. I can see where she's coming from. I could see the low points and be like, yeah, I mean, and her getting picked up by other people and all. Her journey it's okay. It's not it's not one of those movies where it's like a bunch of assholes. And even the rivals were presented, at least initially, as a bunch of assholes. And then you had that one scene where she's learning more about the team and learning that they're just, out there truly pursuing the passion of doing this, to do it for doing its sake, as it were. And she does get a lot of respect out of that sort of answer, I think, as the movie moves forward anyway. And yeah, I think that this movie is pretty solid, as I mentioned. So I think I'm actually going to give this movie a solid 7 out of 10. Which is extremely rare, I think, even in the disaster genre. I think a lot of some of these movies, at least the ones I've seen recently, comparatively, haven't been that great from my memory. I mean, I could be wrong. It's been a while since I've seen a disaster film like this, so I could be wrong. But I digress. I think this movie's pretty fine, pretty solid. So yeah, I'm sticking with the 7 out of 10. And if you ended up enjoying this review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out those links in the description, and one will head you over to my petition to help out smaller YouTubers. Second to my PayPal, where you can help support me and my channel directly, and third to my Discord server, where you can join, collab, shill for free. And until next time, everyone, bye-bye.